The only good thing about Man United's recent results and performances is it puts more and more pressure on the Glazers to sell, and it puts the Glazers in a position where Manchester United will be worth less money because there will be more work to do. And that's exactly what Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Qataris have recognised. Now, people around the Qatar bid have spoke to sources to reassure them that the Qataris are still confident. The Qataris are waiting, and despite the takeover delays, the Qataris believe they will come through. So we will talk about what the Qatari sources have briefed to the media. We will talk about a takeover update that's coming from Mike Keegan. But also in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 things we learned from Bayern Munich 4, Man United 3, talking about Højlund, Reguilon, some of the positives, some of the negatives in McTominay. I'm going to show you some things of what McTominay did, which was absolutely dreadful. Now I look back at it and where United are at. But before we get into 5 things we learned from the game, I want to quickly get into the takeover news. So essentially, it's been said, sources close to Qatar have informed people that Sheikh Jassim still wants to buy United despite the sale process dragging on for 10 months, and that was said by Sky Sports. And Jamie Jackson said that Sheikh Jassim has informed the media that he is prepared to play the long game regarding his wish to buy United. He, is a patient man. So it's essentially been said by Qatari sources to the media that Sheikh Jassim is a very patient man. He still wants United despite the delays in the sale process. Nothing has changed from Sheikh Jassim's side. He's willing to wait it out and play the long game with the Glazers, which is what he's going to have to do because obviously the Glazers want more money. We know the delays really have been because the Glazers want 6 billion and they've just got over 5 billion for Qatar and Sir Jim. Now, Mike Keegan put out a really interesting report on the Manchester United takeover today. And Mike Keegan said a few things. He said Manchester United's stuttering start to the season has done little to bridge the gap between the Glazers' asking price and what is being offered from the club. Mike Keegan then said talks and negotiations remain ongoing with interested parties for Man United, which include the 2 frontrunners to buy the club, Sheikh Jassim and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Sources close to the process say United's poor start to the season haven't gone unnoticed. And Mike Keegan followed up by saying, the key reason for the delay to the takeover process that started last November is the lack of agreement over a selling price. While both parties in the run have offered north of 5 billion, the Glazers are holding out for substantially more. So basically, Mike Keegan has given an update on the takeover, basically saying that, Man United's poor start to the season has been noticed by Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Qatar. And they're basically saying to the Glazers, you want more money out of us, but look at your start to the season. We're going to have to invest even more. Look at how you're playing on the pitch. You're not worth 6 billion. And the good thing about the bad performances on the pitch is the Glazers know they have to sell United. That is a fact. The Glazers have to go. They have to sell the club unless some idiot gives them a minority investment, which allows them to stay. But I don't think that's going to be the case because you'd have to be pretty stupid to trust the Glazers with your money when they're not good businessmen. The Glazers know they have to go. And the Glazers want to sell the club, but they want to sell the club for 6 billion. They want to break the record. They're greedy. They are completely greedy. And they'll be getting these 5-ish billion offers from Qatar and Sir Jim. And the problem with the Glazers is they know they have to sell. Qataris and Sir Jim know they have to sell. Qataris and Sir Jim know if they stay, the stock price will completely crash. And that actually, they threaten to stay because the club could be worth more in 2 years, but it's very unlikely with the way they're running the club. And basically, Sir Jim and Qatar aren't stupid. They're like, well, we'll just wait. They want us to up our bid, but Qataris and Sir Jims know that they don't need to up their bid. They know that what they've bid is fair enough, and they know the Glazers need to sell. The Glazers like to play games like, oh, we're going to stay. They might leak a report to the press that they're going to stay soon, as a negotiation tactic to try and scare Qatar and Sir Jim to up their bid. But Qatar and Sir Jim are basically not falling for it, and are basically saying the delay is because they want to bridge the gap in valuation. But the Qataris have informed the media. The Qatari sources spoke to the media, and they've basically said, yeah, we're willing to wait. We're willing to wait and all that as well. And this story was, again, not just said by Mike Keegan, but Lawton of the Times. And with the takeover, because of non-disclosure agreements, I think every story that comes out from the takeover has to be taken with a pinch of salt. It's hard to know exactly what's going on, but we know that Mike Keegan does often get briefed by the Qataris, and Lawton Times does get briefed by Sir Jim. And I think with the takeover, if something comes out from Mike Keegan, Lawton of the Times, Fabrizio Romano, David Ornstein, Laurie Whitwell, or Reuters or Bloomberg or Business, that's when it's somewhat credible, and that's when you can somewhat believe it, but still take it with a pinch of salt. If it comes out from anyone else, just completely disregard it. That's what I'm saying on takeover. But Lawton of the Times said, according to sources close to the process, Man United's form and various controversies do not encourage the 2 bidders to up their bid. So basically, Sir Jim and Qataris saying they're here, they're waiting for United, they're ready, but they ain't going to up their bid. And, they feel pretty strong about that. And just because they're not going to up their bid doesn't mean anything bad for us. Obviously we want Qatar to up their bid so they can become the next owners of United, but the Glazers might have to cave. The Glazers might get to a point, and if things get so bad, and this is the only positive of things being so bad at the moment, but the Glazers might get to a point where they're like, okay, we're going to have to accept that. We're going to have to, compromise, and hopefully that's the case. Now, I want to talk about 5 things we learned from the Bayern Munich game, because there's quite a few things to speak about ahead of the Bayern Munich game, and I have to say, people, another loss. But you know what? When we lost to Arsenal and when we lost last night, I don't feel awful. I don't feel awful like I have in the past. I think some of our other losses have really wound me up. Like the Brighton loss, that made me really angry. But this loss and the Arsenal loss, I did see some positives. So I'm not super mad. But as you can see, 4-3 to Bayern Munich. Not quite what you want to see. But the first thing we learned from the game is that midfield pivot isn't working. I like Casemiro. I like Eriksen. But together, they work in those games against the lesser sides. They work against the Luton Town. They work in games against the lesser side where they're not going to be outrun. And if we're playing a game where we're going to dominate possession and we're not coming up against the super, what would the word be? Super, like fit midfield, we're fine. But Casemiro and Eriksen can't cover the ground. That is their big problem. I tweeted it earlier. I said silly people will blame Onana, and yes, it was a bad mistake. But the real problem at Man United is Eriksen and Casemiro. They do not have the legs to compete with other midfields. They always get outrun, which results in us losing control. Once we gain more control in midfield, we'll improve all around. I think that was the biggest problem for me. Is, we normally in those big games have Casemiro and Fred can cover the ground. But Casemiro and Eriksen, the 2 things they lack with is covering the ground. They're not as fit. They're a little bit older. And obviously Mason Mount will come in and improve that. Amrabat will come in and improve that. But I think, not being able to run and keep up with the tempo in midfield meant that we lost control of the game, which I personally thought was the biggest problem ahead of the game, in all honesty. But, that's something that can be worked on with new signings. But that, for me, I don't like Eriksen and Casemiro in big games. In small games, that's fine. But in big games, it's got to be Amrabat, Kobbie Mainoo, Mason Mount even as well. Now, the second thing we learned is that Højlund is quality. I feel really positive about Rasmus Højlund ahead of this, although I know it's been quite negative and there's a lot of negativity around United, but Rasmus Højlund is definitely one of the bright sparks at the club. He came on versus Arsenal, made an instant impact, almost won a penalty versus Arsenal, you could argue. Was really good in those 20-minute cameo versus Arsenal. When we played against Brighton, he was doing the graveyard shift. He got one cross, he scored from it. Obviously, it was ruled out by VAR, but he was there poaching it in. And then today, he was on the graveyard shift, really barely had the ball. But he was just in the right areas. And that's something we missed, that focal point. Someone that's just going to be in the right areas to tap it in. So even though Rasmus Højlund, again, barely got the ability to touch the ball, he was there when it counted. And he could tap the ball in and score the goal. And, he's a goal scorer. And, what we needed is someone that can score goals. So at least we know Rasmus Højlund, he can score goals. He should have 2 goals and 2 starts. He was absolutely robbed of his first goal. But you know what? The amount of people desperate to do 007, and they didn't. Now, the third thing I want to talk about is McTominay is a disgrace. And this really worries me because we know Eriksen and Casemiro aren't great at covering ground, but McTominay is someone that's always known for his work ethic, his work rate. McTominay is someone that I've said probably isn't good enough to play for United, but he's always had the right work ethic, the right work rate. He never stops running. Well, today McTominay came on and couldn't be bothered to run. And I'm thinking, if McTominay's not running, who's been trusted by previous managers and praised for his work rate, things are really bad. And I was really disappointed in McTominay because, Casemiro and Eriksen have been poor. There's a lot of injuries. You've got an opportunity to maybe prove Ten Hag wrong. Ten Hag wants you gone, but this is an opportunity to play well and get back and get a run of games in United starting lineup. And McTominay just didn't seem bothered about it. And I think next time Hannibal Mejbri's got to come on ahead of Scott McTominay. 100% Hannibal Mejbri should come on ahead of Scott McTominay because Hannibal Mejbri came on versus Brighton and showed that fight. But this is something I want to show with McTominay. McTominay lost the ball to Upamecano. Then he's in the same starting position as Upamecano and the ref. But then if you look in frame 3, the ref ahead of McTominay, he basically jogged. This is McTominay losing the ball. This is obviously the more sort of running back. And then the next thing, McTominay's there, Upamecano's there, the ref's there. He was just jogging. He was just playing at half tempo. And Scott McTominay's mostly known for his work rate and attitude. But today he was disgraceful. And he was honestly one of the worst players on the pitch when he came on. The fourth thing I wanted to talk about and the fourth thing we learned from the game is we are mistake FC. Mistakes are costing us. That silly, if it wasn't for that Onana mistake, it's 3-3. If we didn't switch off after the first goal, like we always do, that's the second goal. The first goal could have easily been prevented. That is on Onana. The second goal is just us switching off, which should be we need to stop doing. The third goal we conceded is a BS penalty, which is more just about luck. And the fourth goal we conceded, again, is us scoring a goal, switching off, getting run through. But I feel like we played so well the opening 25 minutes, and then we make one silly mistake, one lapse in concentration, and then they capitalise on it and they go 1-0 up. And this was just like the Brighton game. And as soon as we go 1-0 down, we lose concentration, things go wrong. We need to stop making those silly mistakes, because how many times have we had a good 20, 25 minutes, not put our chances away, one silly mistake, one lapse in judgment, and then the whole game changes around. That is a worrying thing that we massively need to work on. But the fifth and final thing I think we learned from the game is actually things aren't that bad. I mean, maybe they are bad. Maybe they are bad. Maybe they are really, really bad. And maybe I'm being too positive. But I feel confident that we're going to turn the season around. And I'm going to show you why. I said I'm actually feeling pretty positive about Manchester United after the loss. And I really believe Ten Hag will turn things around. Mount, Maynard, Amrabat and Varane are back within the next 2 weeks, which will solve a lot of problems. Eriksen does not have the legs for big games, and while Mount's best attribute is covering ground just off the ball where we needed him today. A lot of people don't want the Mason Mount signing, but Mason Mount can do what Eriksen didn't do today, and that is cover ground. Mason Mount was brought for his off-the-ball ability to press, which is, as you can see with the lack of athleticism in the team, you can actually see why we signed Mason Mount today. Even though he's more of a 10, not an 8. We should have really got an 8 that can do what Mason Mount could do off the ball. You can see it a little bit today. I said Amrabat brings much needed defensive balance and is an option if Casemiro's form does not pick up 100% as well. Amrabat's coming back. You've got Maino and Amrabat have the technical ability and possession, which we're missing because we can't feed the ball from midfield to attack as well. We're not good enough on the ball in midfield in terms of retention of things. And obviously Varane coming back is a big upgrade on Lindelof. And I said, look, the opening 25 minutes are good. If it wasn't for defensive errors, this lack of concentration, we would have gotten a result. I could see what Ten Hag was trying to do in the opening 25 minutes. And a lot of the time he has been let down by silly defensive mistakes / no luck with injuries / VAR. I can see things turning around from here on. And Højlund looks like he could be a top player. So I said, look, things aren't too bad. I think when players come back from injuries, I think we've seen the future of Rasmus Højlund. I think things will get better. Anyway, that was 5 things we learned versus Bayern Munich and a takeover update. Let me know your thoughts. Smash a like, smash a subscribe. See you next time. Bye.